Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to talk about a conditional access policy and in two variant, right? So the first variant is going to be org-wide policy and second one is going to be the app specific or application specific policy, right? Now you might be wondering why we should do the two different policies and why not rely on one policy, right? So the first policy could be something like it's going to be for whole organization, right? And the same policy is going to be enforcing users to register for multi-factor authentication, and then user would be able to simply go through the MFA process in order to access any of those applications or systems, right? So that way it's going to be allowing. Okay, hold on. All right. So the policy in the context of both org-wide as well as app level conditional access policies, right? So it's going to be kind of stronger conditional access policy or stronger layer of authentication for users, right? But at the same time, there would be different requirements and use cases where we wanted to or we have to, and in many cases we must as well by enforcing the separate conditional access policies on application basis, right? What do I mean by application basis? When we have any business application, which is including either HR system or any finance systems wherein there is a lot of confidential data and which needs to be accessed by the different users, different teams, different departments across the organization, right? And we wanted to make sure only those people should be able to access on the different layers that we are going to put together, right? So the layers could be, or those are the checks we can say, including the application should be accessible only on the system or the managed device, which is organization managed, right? And even when people are accessing those systems and applications, those should be compliant enough so that only those systems, those users are going to be able to access, otherwise the access is not going to work as expected, right? Simply the access is going to be blocked and denied at the same time, right? And that is why app-based policy can be strengthened as and when we need it, right? So we can play around it how we wanted it to work as expected, and if we wanted to put additional layers on it to be able to work it as expected, or probably it might break things as well, because if we don't plan it accordingly, if we don't set it up appropriately, then it's going to be really going to be making a nightmare as well. So that is something which really needs to be thought around it, planned accordingly, and then make it across the organization or the respective department or team or group of people, right? Now, this was all around the application specific policy. The second side is org-wide, right? Now, org-wide, there would be a policy for different organizations. Organization means the different teams, right? So teams could be, let's say we have 1,000 users in the organization and we are enforcing a conditional access policy for all those 1,000 users. But that's going to be a standard policy. We are not enforcing kind of stronger authentication at first point because we wanted to make sure users are going through the two-factor authentication all the time. But definitely we are not caring about which device they are accessing on, which application they are accessing, and whatever it is, right? And in the same policy, we are also not adding and putting any of those systems where there is a lot of confidential data, business data, and which really needs a second and strong layer of authentication to access on, right? Now, that is something which is a kind of standard or mid-level, mid-level security or kind of a standard policy, basically, right? In that same policy, we would enforce that to the users, and users would go through the MFA registration. Once the registration completes, user would be able to access all the standard and common applications, for example, Office 365, all Office applications, as well as some of the different applications, which might be a communication or collaboration applications like Slack, or it could be any other applications, might be organization is using different applications, right? And majorly, you would see the different SaaS-based applications across the organizations are being used, be it small, medium, or large organization. there are different organizations who do have their on-premises based applications which are integrated with the hybrid environment, and that is flowing through on-premises to cloud, and then the access is been granted to those users, right? So basis on all of that, the access is provided, but to at certain limit, right? There are different ways how we are going to provide that access to, right? And at the same time, whether we wanted to enforce the two layer of security on the same as well, right? If organization is relying on on-premises application, those are flowing through, probably they might be using VPN to provide access to those systems or those applications. If that is not the case, then they might go through the or flow through application proxy and then provide those access through the Entra credentials to those users, right? And at the same time, we would have capability to enforce the conditional access policy on the application level to make sure that application has only the right set of permissions to access, right? So permissions going to be something like we wanted to we wanted user to authenticate every time whenever they are going to access this particular application, right? We don't want any excuses there. Even if user has already authenticated and registered on the MFA and everything together, and that's already binded together. But still, we wanted to make sure user has to re-authenticate every time, right? So that's the another app level policy, right? So I'll show you how we can go ahead and do that one, and that should be easy, and uh, it is easy to know and understand as well, right? So let me share my screen quickly here, and it should be easy for us to just go through, and I'll show you how we can do that. All right, let me share my screen here. All right, so I'm on Entra ID portal, right? And from here, I have already created a few conditional access policies, right? So those are, or many of those are standard conditional access policies, right? And all those conditional access policies have a standard configurations where we are enforcing users to go through the multi-factor authentication to access any of those applications. But standard as an whenever they're accessing any application, any as in all the standard business applications, including Microsoft Office 365, right? But now I'll start with a app specific policy where I wanted to target only a single application, but I wanted to users to be re-authenticated every time whenever they are trying to access the same application. And also the other controls and filters are the areas or ways for us to make it more stronger than the usual or standard policy. All right, so let's go ahead and create one. So I'm going to add or create a policy for, let's say, I wanted to put it for snow, right? Service now application, right? So I'll just add it and I'll set it to all users, then target resource. So here is the resource that we are going to select, right? So resource is going to be the service now in this case. Perfect. You can see that I have that application added over here. So this is a part of enterprise application, and that is why it is showing up over here. Right now, we are enforcing this policy on an app specific, and that is why this application is added over here. And even we can add some other filters if in case we wanted to go with the attribute matching, right? But for now, I'm not going to go through that one. That is also possible, but that's something we need to use custom security attributes with the respective applications, and there are a lot many other capability that we can bring together with this filters together, right? So let cross it out. Then on the network side, as well as conditions. So if there are any requirements on the network levels or something which we wanted to do, we can simply go ahead and do that. So I'll keep it as all trusted network and locations for now. And majorly that has been kept, and even all compliant network locations as well. So that is also available there, right? And under the conditions, you can see there are a bunch of other conditions that we can go ahead and put together, right? And in this case, we can add all other client applications to be able to access only that respective application. So I'll put all modern client applications, right? So it should be easy. And on the device level filters, authentication flow, along with the device platforms. So these are the other filters where we wanted to let people access the use that application on only on the particular criterion, right? If the criteria is matching, that means application is allowed. For example, the device is something which is managed by the company. Company has all the ownership and everything, and the platform is also matching. That means user is able to access. If not, then simply revoke the access or block the access. The user should not be able to access that respective application at all, right? So these are the other controls where we can put in together. Now let's go ahead and go to add controls over here. So on the control, we can enforce multi-factor authentication along with other filters as well, right? Wherein we wanted to enforce the device should be compliance, then only user should be able to access the application. If we in case wanted to go through uh, stronger or add authentication strengths, even that is also possible. For example, I wanted to enforce on ServiceNow HR based application, right? And that is why we wanted to enforce that one. So we can do that as well. And once we are good, we should be good here. The next is session. Now, you might say, what is the real difference between a standard conditional access policy and application specific, and how this policy is going to enforce the re-authentication on application basis, right? And you might be saying, okay, we have the standard policy which is working as expected, and uh, how it is going to be different than the standard one, and why we need really to create a application specific policy and enforce it, right? So the real capability of this is going to be the sign-in frequency, where we are going to put it on per day or few hours. For example, we wanted to put something like this one. Every 4 hours, user has to re-authenticate, and not only the 4 hours, but at the same time, whenever user is going to access that respective application, we wanted to enforce this capability, which is every time, right? And this sign-in frequency is going to be enforced on that application. Now, user might be accessing this application from mobile phone as well as personal laptops, personal devices. It could be iPad or desktop or laptops, as well as the company provided devices as well, right? But we wanted to make sure the user has to re-authenticate or authenticate. If it is first time, that's authentication. But if it is again and again, that means it's a re-authentication process. And that is what we wanted to make sure is happening, right? Because we wanted to provide access to only those who have the correct and legitimate access, and not anyone can try to access it, right? And that is why this is going to be the really game changer. Now, the option which is for periodic authentication, even that can also be used, but that is something which might be uh, hindering user experience at certain level. And even every time is also similar way, but we can define it, and whatever the user's activities or sessions are going to be active on the device, that means it is going to be available for users, right? So that way it's going to be protecting the applications and data and identity and everything together. So both of these ways are available there for us to enforce the authentication on user identities, right? So this way it should be good there too. All right. So this is the one capability is going to make a difference. Now you might say, okay, even we can also enforce this capability on the standard conditional access policy. Yes, that can also be configured, and that's also possible. But you would see that each and every application which are part of the standard conditional access policy, those would go through and be enforced through all these filters or all of this configuration, and that might impact the user experience, right? People would not like to be authenticated every time because it's going to ask re-authenticate again, right? And that's what the user experience is going to be impacted, and it might not be liked, and that's going to be kind of chaos, right? So that's why definitely we can filter out those systems and applications wherever those are needed and only force to them, and not everything that is really need to be put. And it also does not mean that we should not enforce the multi-factor authentication or policies, right? Because we have to do that, and that's must. We cannot move away or run away out of it, right? So, yep, that is what I wanted to show you and make sure you know and understand it. And once this policy is ready, and let's go ahead and create one. So now it's going to create this policy. So that's the report only. I did not turn it on, right? All right, so this is the policy over here. And similarly, the standard policies would look like something. Let me show you. Okay, so standard policies for users. For example, this one, right? So we are enforcing the MFA. We are adding all users and all the cloud applications with any applications. We are not enforcing anything. We are enforcing only two-factor authentication over here. And other than there is nothing other configurations. And on the standard policies, we have not added any of the session controls as well as a re-authentication mechanism, right? And that won't be there because we don't want to enforce all of that chaos again. And as per user experience, and definitely there would be chaos and don't like and all that, and there would be disagreements as well, right? So yep, that is how it is going to be. So this is going to be standard policy, right? So yep, that is what I wanted to show you and talk about, and how we can go ahead and do it, and how it is going to make difference, what is really the need of it, what are the use cases, and why we should do it, right? And there's no escape from conditional access, or not only conditional but on or from the multi-factor authentication, right? So yeah, that's all for this video. I wanted to show you and talk about, and let me know if you have any questions, any doubts, anything you wanted to know and learn, and happy to help and answer any questions you might have, right? So don't forget to like this video, share it to the friends, people around you, and subscribe to the channel as well so that you get to see every new video, right? So that's all. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.